the reason that I do this job is because I firmly believe that directing is the greatest job in the world. I don't think there is any other job in the world that gets to pull every part of creativity, interpersonal skills, communication, empowering people. It is all the things that I've spent my life doing. It is those parts of photography and learning how to frame and block things, and then like move camera movements, and then the jokes that I would tell at family dinners, to learning how to be a creative director and give feedback and work with people and all the soft skills and all that stuff. It brings together. And I think, it's so easy to forget what we do when you're on set so often. I want everyone to know, like, truly, truly love this job more than anything. And I think the fact that we get to do it at all, much less be able to do it for a living, is just the coolest. I think it's the coolest thing in the world.
Welcome to Chasing the Same Sun, Hometeam's podcast highlighting adventures in global filmmaking with the creatives behind the scenes. I'm Brandon Bloch, and today I'm excited to have a conversation with one of my favorite filmmakers out there, Vaughan. Drew is a one-of-a-kind creative force whose distinct voice shines in both his cinematic brand work and his comedy work, often blending the two worlds in his own distinct way. Drew's perspective also seems to be shaped by time he spent playing various roles agency side and on set. Hometeam has had the privilege of collaborating with Drew on one of our biggest scale and biggest budget projects to date, a high-octane globe-hopping series we did with Robinson Helicopter Company, which Drew brought to Hometeam and led as its director. I always love getting on calls with Drew to help challenge me, inspire me, and bend my brain. And this time it's being recorded and shared with you, our audience. Hey, buddy.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on our podcast, our chance to dig deeper into the filmmakers we've known for years and never asked basic questions like, where are you from? So, it's going to be nice to get to know you on a deeper level today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
So let's start there. Let's start with kind of from the beginning. Where did this spark come from to be a filmmaker? Do you consider yourself a filmmaker? Where did this all originate?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Atlanta, born and raised in the suburbs of Atlanta. And I always wanted to be a musician, but I was never good enough at guitar to be the lead guitarist in a band. So I would like fill in and I would be like a bassist. But the other thing I started doing is I picked up a Canon 40D, which is just like, I remember just being like, oh, this is a crazy digital camera now that's out. I just started taking pictures of my friend's band, and then I started going on tour with them. I really picked up a love for photography, and I was like, this is sick. This is great. I came back, and then I found out about this thing called the Creative Circus, which was an advertising portfolio school. And I was trying to figure out what my life would look like. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll go do, this place has photography. I'll go learn photography here and do that. And trying to convince my parents to go to a place called the Creative Circus as a 19-year-old is a really weird thing to do. And luckily they bought in and they thought it was great. So I was going to go for photography. And my dad was like, well, would you want to have a job when you got out of this thing? And, I'm 19 years old and I'm like, a job sounds nice. So off of doing a skateboard that I turned into a guitar, ended up turning that into like a sort of like side project for myself. And that got the notice of some folks over at ad agency called 72 and Sunny. I got hired to work on Call of Duty, and Sonos were like my clients. And, in my mind, when I moved out to LA, we had sold a commercial and I had no idea how it worked or really anything. I just sort of came up with ideas and figured I don't know, do we shoot it? Do we make it? I figured, does Steven Spielberg just direct everything? I don't really know. When I got on the first set that I was working on, it wasn't my commercial, but I remember the director was this guy named Mark Romanek, who is a very well-known music video director and commercial director, did 1 Hour Photo. I remember just like sort of like the aura of this guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, you could do all this? I didn't realize that was a job. It was just like, that was to me, the best part of the job is making something. As a creative, there's so much of the job that is just meetings. But there's like this sweet spot at the beginning where you're just given the brief to come up with the idea or the script or whatever for the campaign. And that first week is just like, it's pure creativity, whatever you want to do. And it's you and your partner and you're just thugging it out. Just like this, what if we went wild and did all this crazy stuff? And then there's the week when you're actually making the thing. And there's all this time in between that is just such a pain in the ass. And so just like, oh God, like you get the feedback and the changes in this. And well, actually we need to redirect and do all that stuff. And it's just like, I just loved being on set, and that's all the only place I wanted to be. And eventually I had through a weird set of circumstances, was able to direct a music video for this band called Dawes. Um, and I had no idea what any of that meant at to be a director and do all that stuff. I just knew that I wanted to do it. So they asked me, "Hey, do you know how to direct?" So I lied and said yes, and I put together a treatment, and because I've seen all these treatments from all these directors before, so I just looked at what they did, and then I had some really wonderful help from some of like my creative directors at the agency I was at. I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to do this music video. Can you read my treatment? Can you help me out?" And they were like very gracious, and I was like, "I'm gonna skip today to go to like go and shoot a music video." And they're like, "That's great. Like we love like it was really cool." And they were like super helpful and all of that. And then after I did that, I was just like, this is it. This is the thing. This is the thing that I love. This is the thing I want to be doing. This is where I want to put all of my time into. That's really where that's where it all started, was that sort of stumbling into that music video from the sort of ad side of things.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me from the outside looking in that that mix in your background of like being ad side, agency side, and then also being a filmmaker and on set
Mhm.
is probably like good mix of perspectives to have. I mean, does that come in handy to sort of know what an agency's looking for and what they would consider success in a campaign, and then you're out there also making the thing?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like there's a lot of things that do come up, and I've worked with directors before that are like don't understand the agency side at all, and sometimes that's a superpower, and because they don't
Mm,
have maybe they don't have the baggage that I have. But I also think the thing that I'm able to do is just like is having empathy for these creatives, because you spend months and months writing the script and trying to get it made, and like the last thing you want is someone coming in and be like, "No, no, no, you're doing like you're doing it all wrong," and like and you have a client who like bought in on something, and they're like, you've been, agency's been telling him for 6 months, "Hey, it's going to be a seal," and then the director comes in and goes, "No, it's a giraffe now," and they're just like, what is happening? It's so I think it helps me understand these people. It helps me understand like how to play the game, and put together a treatment, and talk to the creatives and talk to the agency, and obviously the relationships that I do have with people within advertising, is it also helps, because I mean, like anything else, it's you don't get anywhere without the people that you sort of come up with.
mhm.
I didn't go to film school, so I don't have like that crew of people who are like, "Hey, we're gonna make this thing and do this together." Like I have a bunch of ad dorks that I've spent my life with that have like I wouldn't have, if it wasn't for people that I worked with at these ad agencies, I would have never directed anything. I wouldn't have been given that opportunity, or been given, "Oh, we trust Drew because he's a good creative. He can probably direct this."
I feel like when you're starting out, it's as on the film side, it seems like really like you have a lot of question marks and a lot of blind spots about like what's going on at agencies and like how do I get on a call and what am I supposed to do and what are the expectations? Is there any advice you'd maybe have for like a young filmmaker starting out to like either get that exposure or not? Because it sounds like you're sort of mixed on the value of it.
Well, I think there's a lot of value to it, and understanding it is really crucial to becoming a good commercial filmmaker. And I think becoming a good commercial filmmaker is a different thing than becoming a very good narrative filmmaker. At the end of the day, you still have to bring your voice. You have to have a point of view. You have to very a specific way that your films walk and talk, that people have to be able to look at and go, "I know who that is, and that is now a product by which I want to use my commercial to use that same voice."
Mhm.
Um, or amplify, take, the pieces of that person's voice and add it to my commercial. So that way, maybe it sings in sort of a different way that I didn't think it was going to sing before. If you're trying to understand the ad side, I mean, I think there's, as a creative, if I had some filmmakers who were like, "Hey, I'm trying to understand this," I would have been thrilled to talk to him. Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk to you about this.
Mm.
And I would love to help you understand. I had there's a person in my building who is, she has spent her entire life working on like feature films, and like big feature films. And she's like, "Can you tell me about advertising?" I'm like, "How do you not know about this?" Like,
Right.
it was crazy because has this wealth of knowledge. And that's just, I think people want to exchange and people want to help. And I think just people are nervous to feel dumb or come across as stupid or not knowing enough. But I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And I think a lot of people are always eager to help.
Well, you brought it up. I mean, it sounds like you also see like a distinction between commercial filmmaking and like narrative or dramatic or comedic filmmaking, but like you seem to live in both worlds. Can you describe that? Like your range of what you're creating, what do you think your voice is, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, as far as my voice, it took me a while to kind of like figure out what that is. I really like subverting expectations. I like thinking you're going to go one way and then sort of pulling the rug out from underneath you. That's what I found. That's just like inherently where I go, what I think is funny, what I think is interesting. I think for a long time I ran away from the word comedy because I felt like it wasn't like real filmmaking, which is just such a silly thing. Cause I think writing a joke and then getting a talent to deliver a joke in a way is so much harder to do than to get someone to deliver a line seriously or try to evoke like a dramatic emotion. I don't think that's in everybody. I don't think everyone can do that. I don't think everyone understands the timing or the delivery or any of that stuff. But I still I appreciate the cinematic sort of feeling of it all because I remember when I saw Atlanta and I was like, this show is hilarious. And also it looks like a movie. It was just like, oh, I didn't realize you can do that. And I think I've sort of tried to sort of like fall into that line of elevating the crafts, but also how do we bring these things that are also funny? Like it doesn't have to be such a split of drama is this and comedy is this. These things can come together and do those in like fun and interesting ways. So it doesn't have to be like, you know, Airplane versus Andre Rublev. Like these things can coexist in a similar world.
A lot of directors we know have kind of like a key collaborator or two or three that helps bring their vision to life. Do you have those people in your life? And if so, like what roles are they? Who are they? And what does that all look like? That kind of like great collaboration relationship you have with other creatives.
On the film side, it's this DP I've worked with a ton. This guy named Steve McCord. He is, I met him when I used to live in Austin. I was working as like a second AD on a set on something, and I was just trying to understand films, and I was freelancing and advertising and finding these weird set jobs through these other people I got connected with in Austin. And I just remember watching Steve work, and he's younger than me, but he was the DP on this like short film, and it was just the work was beautiful, and he was the way in which he worked and the way he treated people and talked to folks was just like I was just really astounded. And I just remember approaching him, and I was just like complimenting him. I was like, "Your work is really good. Like, I really love what you do. I think you take great care. If you'd ever be interested in working on something with me, let me know." And he was like, "Yes, let's absolutely do something." And we ended up making a spec together, which was funny. And I don't think it's in my reel anymore, but it is like I'm still super proud of that thing that we made together, and it was really fun. There's creatives that I've worked with. Obviously, this guy Rye Clifton, who we did all the helicopter stuff together. He's the one who put me on for this Capital One commercial years ago, back at like during the pandemic. Who he was like just sort of saw that in me, and like the people like that who are sort of like champion you.
Well, the post side too, right? Like with Robinson, it was like
And
it
then,
all came to
yeah,
life in post.
and then there's guys like Nico who is, I mean, I need to put Nico on his own special pedestal because that guy is a monster of an editor. Like Steve and Nico kind of go hand in hand with me as being, I don't know where I'd be without those guys. Honestly.
It's funny. This isn't something on my list of questions, but it strikes me like when we were on set together for Robinson, there was this moment where I saw like a side of you that I hadn't seen before. We
Mm,
hadn't been on set, but you sort of like huddled everybody up and had this moment where you were like just expressing so much gratitude and like bringing the team together, like all the different departments had been doing their own thing, and there was this moment on the eve of the shoot where you were just like you just hugged the whole crew and
yeah.
made sure everybody knew the goal, and sort of like the mission and to be kind to each other. Could you explain that? And like, is that done with intention? What's the value of doing something like that?
The reason that I do this job is because I firmly believe that directing is the greatest job in the world. I don't think there is any other job in the world that gets to pull every part of creativity, interpersonal skills, communication, empowering people. It is all the things that I've spent my life doing. It is those parts of photography and learning how to frame and block things, and then like move camera movements, and then the jokes that I would tell at family dinners to learning how to be a creative director and give feedback and work with people and all the soft skills and all that stuff. It brings together. And I think, it's so easy to forget what we do when you're on set so often of just going, okay, I'm just like picking up his camera and moving here. I got to get this C stand, or I just like I want everyone to know like truly truly love this job more than anything. And I think the fact that we get to do it at all, much less be able to do it for a living, is just the cool. I think it's the I think it's the coolest thing in the world. Like making movies is the best thing in the world, and I think that's so important. Just because I want people to feel gratitude, I want them to feel like I'm not just some guy who's just here to bark orders at them. Like we're all here to make something great and do it in harmony with one another. And I just yeah, and I always try and I always make sure to do that. Because I think there are times when it can get rough or can get snippy, or we're shooting and it's freezing cold at night in Arizona, and your lips are chapped and my lips were bleeding as I'm trying to interview people, or you're out in the middle of the bush in Australia wrangling 5,000 sheep and there's a snake in the ground. Like there's all these things that could go wrong that get in the way. And I think it's just like remembering like what we're doing and showing appreciation and just gratitude for people. I think it's important.
Well, let's talk about Robinson. We've kind of talked around it a little bit, but man, what a rad project. Like when you reached out to us about that, it was like, are you kidding? This is like the dream brief you grew
Hmm.
up. Hey, could we like travel around the world and film helicopters? Tell us about like where that job originated, and also just like why'd you think to bring it to us, and
So Rye, who I mentioned earlier, that guy is I don't know what he does, but he is one of the smartest guys I know. I did a vodka project in Mexico, and
yeah.
it was dark and it was not funny and it was any of this stuff. Which I mean, I did it. I think it's a great spot. I don't think anyone else could have done it like me, but it's I Steve Wood down there with me. I threw him in a bull ring with a bull. It was crazy. Rye loved that type of stuff. He's like, I think you should do this sort of doc thing for Robinson. And so he sort of sold it in on his end, and then I just started sort of putting together treatments and thoughts on how it would work. And we shot in Arizona and Florida, which not that crazy, but when you go to the middle of nowhere, Australia and Sao Paulo, that starts becoming a little bit of a different thing. And I've worked with production companies, big and small, and seen a lot of these people kind of, yes, we can do this, and then they get there and they can't deliver on it.
Mm.
And I just knew that you guys, through your relationships to the people you knew, like could deliver on that. And that's what made me feel really safe to do it with y'all. I knew you guys were gonna crush it, and you did. And this stuff, and the work turned out amazing. And so much of that is because of all the hard work that y'all put in, and the people like Tyson and Brazil to make it happen, and all of our folks down in Australia. Like we had a cyclone that hit Australia, and while the while the agency was flying to Australia, that we had to change locations. Like 2 days before we were supposed, or 3 days before we start shooting, they had to find a completely different pilot, a different part of Australia, get a completely different crew, and then found a gaffer who said, "I'm willing to drive down the day of my birthday, or the night of my birthday. My assistant's gonna drive me down, and then I'm gonna have the truck, and he's gonna fly back." It was just like you found these people, and these crazy, amazing people that now I'm just like so happy to be connected to. Whether it's those, like like Damien, the who's doing all the stills and stuff, and the drone stuff, in Australia, or Alan, the key grip, and uh, Sao Paulo, who's the strongest man I've ever seen in my life. Like it's just, I don't know. It just turned out so wonderful with the people, and I think that's again goes back to why I love doing this job so much, is because it's such a people industry, and being able to activate people to let them do the thing that they really want to be doing, you always get better results out of that.
I think I hope what we offered as a company was like a really firm foundation of like the producer know-how and these like proven vetted crews, like Jen delivering magic, Jason coming in and sort of like taking care of all of the moving parts so that you were able to fucking shred on top of it. Like
Yeah.
it felt like a very rock and roll, almost like a punk indie.
It was. It
vibe
felt
on
yeah.
set, you know?
Yeah. And it really did feel like that. And I think that was like and that was a fun thing to be able to do because there's a big difference, right? There is as we're also flying helicopters around, which is just badass in general. Like there is this kind of idyllic, like DIY filmmaking that some sets and some shoots you have to have and you need to have, and it's gonna make it better. What I loved about what Home Team did is that you basically were able to set like I'm constantly throwing ideas and here's what I think we should do and how I think we should do it. And having Jason and having Jen and having you and Thaisa and whoever just like so ready for it and just be like, yes, it was no I was never told no. It was always a yes, or we can figure this out, or let's talk about it. Um which was always which made it good for me and which made it good for the agency, which made it good for multiplier because we all understand that we're all trying to do the same thing here. This is a team sport. Filmmaking is a team sport, and the part of that team is the client and part of that team is the agency. And I think Home Team just does such a good job of understanding how all of that works. It gives a better cadence. It feels safer, it feels better, and it feels just more exciting. Where you're like, yeah, now we're gonna do this crazy thing where we have a little RC car that's gonna drive around on a tarmac and with a camera on it and go underneath these moving helicopters. Like it's crazy.
I like how you said we never said no, but we said let's talk about it. Kind of the same thing. Anyway, let's talk
But
about
that was the thing is
yeah,
because you wouldn't just be like, "No," and then I'm just sitting there just like,
yeah, yeah.
"Well, why?" Like,
No is a constraint, but
yeah,
create you could always like navigate around a constraint with
right.
creativity, you know? Your comedy work. So I'm just a big fan of all your work and I watch all of it. But there's such a variation, I think, in your work.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
Which of your comedy pieces do you think is your voice? Like what one that really like crystallizes your your sensibilities and like, you know, which one or two pieces if someone were to say like what is your sense of humor, Drew?
Mhm.
Like which ones would you point them toward?
There's I did the same with Alana Glazer a few years ago that was very much like it's kind of this like dry, like it's funny, but we're not like pointing it to the funniness of it that I felt like was really good. And like I wasn't like I wrote the spot, but I was just like the way in which it got executed and Tom Briss, the agency, just had such a good like the script was really funny already. And I think it was kind of like in my vein. And again, this is to one of these people who this guy Nick Troop who was over at Tom Briss was like Drew's the guy to do this thing. And like he put me on to it. Again, like that's the only way that this stuff happens is through these types of like relationships. I think that did it. Like I felt like that was very much like, oh, this feels really good. And I felt like really happy about like what I did at the end. I also just did these like I just did these series of like short films. I don't know what they are. I guess they're shorts. They're like little vignettes. It's called Advice.
It's so raw. And I'm curious, you know, what was that series and did you get out of it what you were hoping to get out of it?
They're real like I've been going through this thing where, I was just in a rut. I was in a rut. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to make. I didn't know how to make. I was sad. I felt stuck. And I kept thinking people were talking to me as if I had all the answers. And I was like, I don't. And I haven't worked in a little bit and it feels scary. And I just kept on thinking of like the advice I was giving to people. And then I was like, well, I thought of the old saying. It's like the advice that you give is most often the advice you most need to hear.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about that and I was like, yeah. I was like, well, maybe I need to hear this advice. I was like, how would I do that? So I thought through, I just, so I plotted out like four pieces of advice that I kind of like generally would give to people. And then I wrote them into little monologues and I gave them to four different characters in New York City. And originally they were just going to tell it to camera and they all just happen on this one take. So there's four pieces of it and there's just like one pullback. And on each one of those, it's like, they're all like they're not funny haha, but this guy is talking like the first one, this guy is talking about how nothing rules, how nothing matters. There's no rules. Everything's made up. Everything if you say this is real, like you're only like Nothing is really real. In the end, you see him put on his priest collar and he's like, I got to go to work. And he walks into the church behind him. And you're like, what? Like, what did I just watch? Like, I don't understand. Like, there was another guy there's this woman that was like, she's talking about fear. And like, the only way that you can get through fear is to like look it right in the eyes and like, I see you, like understanding why fear is there. But like, I don't need you and I'm going to go right past you. Like, and then as the camera pulls out, like it starts out with her face up against the fence, and it pulls out, and then you realize that she's getting she's getting arrested, like, and she's like giving advice about like, "Don't let him stop you, kiddo." And she was incredible, and she was like such a huge talent. And that was like, I was like, this feels like me. This feels like Drew. It's what do they call it? Like therapeutic, self-soothing, like thing that speaks to that sort of ache inside of all of us. And I think, I use comedy to mask things in my own life. So maybe I'm going, yeah, let's make it on film. And then even to the point where I ended up putting myself inside of these films too. When it pulls out, you just see this person's face. And then as it pulls out, you see that I'm holding the microphone on these people. Part of that was because I didn't want to spend money on a sound person. And the other part of it was me just having a cathartic experience with this person and how they're talking and what they're saying to me. And it helped. Honestly, like oddly it helped. And it was really cool because I feel like it was the first thing that I sort of made without, oh, I hope it gets to this or it goes here or it does this thing or I was like trying to do anything. I made it because I was like, this is a thing that I'm feeling right now. And if it resonates with me, I think it's going to resonate with a lot of other people. And it's like, I've got a lot of like really sweet messages about it. It's not going to win Sundance. It's not going to win Tribeca, but like, I'm just really glad that it made something and people liked it. And I think that's better than going going to a film festival and sitting in a movie theater with a bunch of people I would never get along with at a bar, being bored by a bunch of short films. I guess like, um,
Now that it's out of your system,
Mhm.
did it did it accomplish what you were hoping, or did you not even know what you were trying to accomplish? You just had to like make and discover and figure it out.
I think I had to figure it out. It was very, like I said, it was very cathartic. It was this experience that I was trying to put myself into and have a new way of making films. I was trying to get, okay, I want to have this, I got to shoot it on an Alexa and I have to have it be like a Zoom that's like 50 to 5,000 and all like I have to do it. I have to like, this is how I got to do it. This the right way. And then as I'm thinking about all that, I'm like, that's so expensive. And now we're going to have to get an AC and I'm going to get a second AC and I'm going to have to rent this lens and I have to do these certain days. And if we start putting sticks down, I'm going to get permits and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was like money, money, money. And then just like, this is all things that are getting in the way. I'm my own producer for these things. So I'm just like, it was just stressing me out. And then I was like, okay, what if I just get a camcorder? What if I get a DP and a camcorder and he just zooms out on each one of those and he helps you like set up the frame and like, and that's like not that's no shade to Zach because Zach like did such a great job. Zach Cooper is the DP on that, did like such an amazing job on being there and helping me out and supporting and running camera and making sure the frame looked good and all that stuff. But I was just like, I'm putting all these things in my way. What I need to do is make something. So why don't I just make something and take away all the things that are going to be the hardest things that the things that are going to get in the way of me making something rather than just me making something. And that has been a huge help. I have 4 more that I want to do. And then now I go, cool. I know how to do them. I can do them cheaply. I can do them quick. It really doesn't take much. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now who want to be doing this type of stuff. And from that, I've now met a bunch of other sort of directors and filmmakers, and we've now started a sort of film collective that we're doing where we make a film every 4 months. So we're in the middle of our first one right now, but excited to have those films show in November.
Something like as a creative person, you're always trying to figure out like, why do I do this? Basically,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
it like you just said with advice, like you have this idea in your head and it's like you got to get it out, but the journey to get there is so challenging. You're like, why don't I just not do this or keep working at the agency job or whatever? It's not a question so much as just something I'm exploring, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts for yourself of just like what is that answer? In a world where you could be doing basically anything, what is it about filmmaking and this form of self-expression that like why do you do it and what are you getting out of it and what's still left to do, you know? It's a
Yeah.
big question.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I am very, 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 very lucky to be able to do what I do, especially being able to dip my toes in directing commercials and directing pieces of content and docs and all that stuff, and also being able to, it and we all know like the industry is in such like a weird flux right now that I'm able to do that. And when those things dry up, I'm able to work in an ad agency and do that. So I'm able to sort of like parse both worlds. Now, is that the best thing necessarily for my directing career? No. Is it the best thing for my creative director career? No. I'm having to sort of straddle both of these things. But I think what it really the thing that I've had to learn, and it's been a hard lesson that's really taken me a couple years to learn is that like things may not turn out the way that you want it to, or that you hope to, or that you're expecting it to. And really figuring out, well, how are we going to adapt to those situations? Right. So I'm super lucky that I'm able to adapt really easily. Oh, I have a commercial job come up. Oh, I have an advertising job come up. I can do both of those things. I can sort of slip between them. Those things don't fill my cup. Right. Those are the things that are I'm like, oh my gosh, I got my sort of like meaning out of this or whatever. And I feel like I'm able to take those I had, you know, I did a thing with Werner Herzog a few years ago. Did this like film intensive for 2 weeks in the Canary Islands. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I've done like directed commercials. And he's like, don't do that. Don't you direct any commercials. He's like, take all the money from advertising and use that to make your film. And I was like, I mean, that's a nice thing for Werner Herzog to say. Like, if I have something that's going to pay me a lot of money to direct and do the thing that I can do, I'm going to do that. But I think that kind of thing is there of like, how do you find that thing that you love so much and also exist as a human being in the world? I think I can adapt to my work, I can adapt to all that stuff, but I can have these big feelings that when I go to my therapist in an hour and a half after this that I'm not able to express and get out and get out to him in my 45-minute sessions with him. And I think doing that in film to me is not only my way of getting that out of myself, but also connecting with other people. I'm not always the best. The thing I love about film is that it slows you down. You have to stop and think about everything that you do. I have such severe ADHD that when I talk, I get ahead of myself, and I've done it a million times so far as we've been talking, where I'm like, I'm over here and over here and over here. But you're making a film, you have to stop and really think about this stuff and go, okay, what's the best way in which I can connect with somebody and tell this story in a way that will resonate with them. And it also helps me sit and think about it and go, well, what am I feeling? What is the stuff that goes through myself that now I can go, this is actually what it is. I'm not actually upset about this thing. I'm not actually bothered by this. I'm actually bothered by this. And now I'm realizing it as I'm filming this thing or as I'm talking to this guy or as I have this lady pushed up against a fence with a guy dressed as a shitty cop who's like arresting her. But I'm like, and everyone's walking by and like, what is that young man doing to that old lady? It's that fence. Um, and I just and I'm realizing things about myself. And again, it like all of it to me as it comes down to human connection. How can I connect with the people on set? How can I connect with the viewer? How can I connect with myself? And I don't think that there's any better medium to do all of that than making making film.
So kind of on the topic of advice, is there any advice you'd give like, hopefully some people watching this are younger filmmakers just getting started, hearing your story. Is there any piece of advice you'd give them or even like the younger version of yourself, that version of yourself just picking up the camera and, starting to film bands and all that? What, now a few couple decades into this, is there any piece of advice that you might give, the younger version of yourself?
Stop caring so much what people are going to think about it, because one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to like it or they're not going to remember it. And that's really it. So just make something and then make another thing and then and it's what everybody says. It's such trite advice, but it is the only advice.
Mhm.
You can't. It's a filmmaking is a hard thing to get your 10,000 hours in. Because it takes a lot. And if there's any way that you can expedite that 10,000 hours by doing it yourself or doing it like the Mark Duplass thing, like the cavalry isn't coming. No one's coming to help you. When I did my first music video, I was like, oh my God, I got 1 million views. I'm going to get, now Smuggler's going to call me. And now like, I'm going to get signed. I'm like, no one gave a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
nobody cared. And then I was just like, oh, I have to keep doing stuff and you have to do more. And now it's just gotten harder and harder and harder to sort of break through. So I think it's just, again, it's more than anything. It's like, and I say that and I give you that advice. I say that advice to whoever of you that are listening, just to make more things and make more things, and they can be dumb and they can be crappy and they can be whatever. Like, if you need to make it in AI, do it in AI. You'll still figure out how filmmaking works and how to lens things and how to frame things and how to compose things. And the only way through is to just to make things. And then you'll find your voice and you'll find what you love to do more than anything else in the world.
The way we try to end these, just got a rapid fire round for you. 5
Sure.
questions. Don't think too hard about it.
Okay.
Just gonna pepper you with these.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite place to film and why?
Oh gosh, Sao Paulo, because it was just so much fun. It was such a great time. The city's amazing. The food was good. The beer was flowing. It was just, I love Sao Paulo.
Nice. What new film or show are you loving? Are you binging?
It's not new, but I just watched Mr. Robot all 4 seasons, and yeah, I went, yes. That show is incredible. Oh my god. I wish I could watch it again not having seen it. It's so good.
I haven't seen it, so I'll watch it for you, and let you know how it goes. Um, what filmmakers out there are inspiring you right now?
I mean, coming off that, like Sam Esmail, the guy who wrote and directed that, was is just incredible, and just someone who does it and just such like a calculated, such like a well directed way. I just like my old, if you, yeah, it's Mr. Robot. Anybody to connect with Mr. Robot is like that. That is really, all that stuff is really good. I mean, like the Sean Bakers, the like those types. I think of just making the things that you want to make that resonate with you and doing it with a smaller team and in that sort of like punk rock style is like, I think is amazing.
And then what's on your filmmaking or creative bucket list? Like what's the thing that you haven't done yet that's out there you're striving for?
Yeah, I mean, when people ask me what do you want to do when you grow up, I always say I want to direct a Star Wars. And that's like that would be the thing of being able to do anything. So like big genre repeat. I did like a sort of weird genre short film last year that is weird and goofy as sort of like my first step into that. But yeah, it's just that doing like a big sort of genre piece, I think would make like 9-year old me just lose his mind.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's all I've got. Anything else that we missed that you want to talk about? Anything on your mind?
No, no, I think this was great. Yeah, this is really good. Of
Yeah. Well, hey man, appreciate you. Looking forward to chances to collaborate again. If they
course.
don't come to us, let's make them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Got to make your own luck sometimes. No, really good. I
Sure.
I I learned a few things myself, about you, about me, about what we do. So appreciate you, man. And I don't know how to wrap these things up. Let me think.
And cut.